Sometimes she would have long coughing spells, after which her cheeks would be flushed. Once John had overheard his mother tell their pastor, Dr. David Jennings, that she had consumption, though he didn't know exactly what that meant. Yesterday, Elizabeth Catlett, a distant cousin of John's mother, had visited. She took one look at his mother and announced she needed some sea air if she was to have any hope of recovery. John knew that the air in Wapping, located beside the Thames River on the edge of London, was thick with smoke and acrid smells. 100 or more workshops and factories, including potteries, dye works, gunsmiths, and blacksmiths, lined the riverfront, their chimneys belching black smoke into the air. In winter, smoke from these factories, along with the smoke from household fireplaces, combined with fog to wrap Wapping in a pall of grayness through which the sun rarely pierced. John knew that breathing fresh air, especially the air nearer the sea, such as in Chatham, Kent, where the Catletts lived, could be good for his mother. At first John assumed he would be making the trip to Kent with his mother, but his hopes were dashed when Elizabeth Catlett arranged for him to stay with a member of the church while his mother went off to Kent. And now she was gone. The woman John had spent every day of his life with, who taught him to read when he was 3 years old, who had been his only teacher, playmate, and confidant, had been wrapped in a woolen shawl, propped up in a carriage, and taken from him. Over the next 2 weeks, John found that the rhythm of life went on. He helped fetch water from the well at the end of the street, and watched over the younger children in the house. To please his mother, he continued learning large portions of the Westminster Shorter Catechism by heart, and reading Isaac Watts's A Short View of the Whole of Scripture History. John prayed for his father, a ship's captain who was currently away on a voyage. On Sundays, he attended the old Gravel Lane Independent Meeting House on Prince's Square. It was a dissenter chapel where Dr. Jennings preached each Sunday. Most of the time, Dr. Jennings' sermon was too hard for John to understand, but John loved the new hymns Isaac Watts introduced to the congregation. Isaac lived nearby in Stoke Newington and was a friend of Dr. Jennings. He sometimes came to the dissenter chapel to teach the congregation one of his new songs. John's favorite new hymn introduced by Isaac Watts was When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. This hymn had a jaunty tune that sounded to him more like a sailor's shanty than the droning psalms chanted at St. John's, Wapping's official Anglican church, which John attended with his father when he was home. After John had done his chores and completed his studies, he had not much else to do. He spent hours walking along the riverfront, from where he could see the roof of the nearby Tower of London. His mother had told him that this was where King George II kept the crown jewels. John loved to stand at the top of Wapping Stairs, the stone stairs that led from the end of the street down to the north bank of the Thames. From there he would watch the bumboats ferry supplies of food, water, paint, and sailcloth to the ships moored along the river. Meanwhile, longboats jostled as they brought sailors ashore and picked up others. But best of all, John liked to stare at the hundreds of tall ships lying at anchor, waiting for the right tide to set sail for some foreign port. At times, John's mother wouldn't let him go near the Wapping Stairs, mostly when a pirate was being executed by hanging. The gallows were set up beside the stairs, and the pirate, or group of pirates, was hung from a short rope. The short rope meant that the pirate did not die straight away. Huge crowds would gather to watch the spectacle. Then, as an extra warning to anyone who might think being a pirate was a fast way to riches, the dead bodies were left dangling in the water for a day and a half until 3 tides had washed over them. After this, the bodies were taken from the end of the rope and buried in a pauper's grave.